Hello, Wear Many Hats listeners. It's me, Mark Robinson, here again, your host for another episode of the world's premiere facilities management podcast. But today we've got something very, very different. We're not really going to focus on facilities management. Well, not specifically today anyway. We've got an incredibly exciting guest who's going to talk us through everything sustainability and social value. That's going to be the main crux of the episode today. So strap in and enjoy yourselves, and welcome Rowan Packer, the Executive Director and Head of Sustainability and Social Value at MAPP. Hello, Rowan. How you doing?
All right. How are you guys?
I'm good, mate. You having a good day?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Busy day.
Busy day?
Ending with a podcast is always a good thing.
Yeah. Is this your first podcast, or have you done a few?
No, I've done a few, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. What do you mean?
Sustainability is just such a topic now. So, yeah, it's good.
It has grown, hasn't it? It has grown.
Yeah, it has grown. It's been crazy. I would say the last 5 years has been a bit of an explosion.
Yeah.
But it's been a good ride.
Great explosion, though. It's by the sounds of it for you. You know, it's been...
Yeah, it's a good environment to have a challenge, right?
Yeah.
So it's still challenging. It's still complex.
Yeah.
But it's all on the positive side of that. So it's a good explosion.
Okay, brilliant. Well, listen, tell us a little about your journey into... I mean, I see on your LinkedIn profile that you... started on the sustainability journey, I think, in Sainsbury's. I could be wrong, but take us through that journey, and and then get to the end point and tell us where you are now. What's happened? How did you get here?
Well, you definitely strap in for that one, hey? So, long story short, I'm probably about 2 decades now down in terms of my career.
Right.
Like you said, you probably hear from my voice already. I'm South African.
Yeah. Durban?
Durban, that's it.
See, look how I guessed that. I didn't speak to him before at all, I promise.
Liar, he questioned me on the but no, certainly came from a beach boy life. But moved to England, mother's English, so that sort of made sense there. But yeah, I started at Sainsbury's, and the interesting story there is I was actually started at Royal Mail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had like 3 or 4 jobs, nightclubs, Royal Mail, trying to get a rugby contract.
Yeah.
But I was at Royal Mail. If people don't know about Royal Mail, you work ridiculously silly hours.
Yep.
And I was doing the pigeonholes. So I got irritated one day, left that building,
right,
phoned up my agent, the agent that had recruited me. And
so hang on, just the agent, rugby, were you...
No, apologies. No, just a normal employee...
recruitment agent. Right, okay.
Not the rugby.
I thought you were I thought you were a Bock or something like that, you know what I mean?
No. I got close, but no, I wasn't good enough. What was
your position?
I was a fullback.
Were you?
Trade, yeah.
Oh, so a bit quick then?
Yeah, I was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Made Harlequins, but then I wasn't good enough from there.
You made Harlequins?
Yeah, under 21s. I can't claim the senior side.
That's not bad though, Rowan. You can't. I mean, if you've made the Harlequins, that's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Fair play.
Good. Yeah. Good, but
I never made the Harlequins.
Yeah. Surprised.
I know. I look like such an athlete, don't I?
Well, yeah. No one can see right now, but yeah. I'm going to go with yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Broad, mate. Broad. That's what it was. Built for it.
But no, it's a brutal system, right? Like any sport, it's a filter system. But anyway, so that happened how it did. And weirdly, my career has blossomed. So, would I go back and be a rugby player is an interesting debate in my own head.
Yeah.
But Royal Mail, didn't like it, walked down this road, and they said, oh, can you just jump into this building, look after him? Can you be a receptionist? And I was like, right. Yeah, I'll do reception for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Turned out it was Sainsbury's head office.
Oh, really?
So my first proper job, per se, was a receptionist in Sainsbury's.
Right.
Worked hard, got to know people. They picked me out of the crowd, pulled me into the office, and I ended up being a operations manager for Sainsbury's for many years. Sainsbury's for 8 years.
Yeah.
Cut my teeth there, learned the business.
Yeah.
Learned UK.
So was that across their retail portfolio or their
stores?
Their
stores, main
really?
stores and convenience stores. Looked after, learned about property, learned about stores. And then one day they just had this big meeting, and Sainsbury's in the days, were really leading.
Yeah,
they were absolutely leading on energy.
Yes,
the topic of energy, sustainability was not born yet, but energy, definitely was born. And
they built a lot of new supermarkets that were quite sustainable around that time, didn't they? I remember quite a few of them going up.
Yeah, famously Greenwich.
Yes,
Greenwich with the wind turbines and then the grass roof, and that was a privilege being part of that. That was like 2002, 2003.
Wow.
But they they one day decided to put this sustainability team together. So I put my hand up as usual. And probably an idiot. Joined their sustainability team, cut my teeth.
Yeah.
Then I felt I had done enough there.
Right.
Took the big plunge of my first ever leave.
Yeah.
Went to the big green machine, CBRE.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everyone who knows real estate, CBRE are pretty big.
They are one of the biggest.
And I was a young guy, so that was quite a big thing.
Yeah.
But I wasn't actually working for CBRE. They pointed me directly onto Pfizer Pharmaceutical.
Oh, really?
So I worked at pharmaceutical locations, which really started to build the experience. If you've ever done pharmaceutical manufacturing.
Very challenging.
It's another level.
Yeah.
The pipes are probably bigger than the average car.
Yeah.
So it's a different level. Worked there for 2 or 3 years. Then I shifted to one of the biggest real estate companies, Land Securities.
Land Securities, yeah.
This has now been quite consistent in sustainability.
Yeah.
Sustainability at Landsec, I was in the retail side. So I started learning shopping centers, a little bit of office, residential, so on and so on. Started to learn a lot about corporate reporting with Landsec.
Right.
Because of their scale. Started doing all the annual reports, some of the annual reports of Landsec.
Yeah.
Then I got to the end of my career at Landsec and decided to go to Europe. So I got the opportunity to work for a company called CLS Holdings.
Okay,
which is a Swedish-backed private equity real estate company. And there I got to work in about 4 countries across Europe. So it was Germany, France, Sweden, the UK. Again, doing sustainability. And this is where I had the opportunity to become head of sustainability. So I sort of shifted up in responsibility.
Yeah. Was there a significant difference between the countries in terms of the attitudes towards sustainability?
Yeah, the biggest difference, is cultural difference, cultural acceptance to the same message.
Oh, really?
So if you say, we want to save carbon, the French would see that different on how they save carbon to, say, the Germans would see that different, and then the English would see that different.
Right.
And the Swedish would probably be way ahead and think you're quite boring.
Yeah, geothermal and all that stuff. Yeah.
So cultural difference is the biggest difference, other than economics and so on.
Okay.
But cut my teeth there.
Yeah.
Did incredibly well. Met some amazing people through my career. And the whole way through my career, it's a case of hard work and luck.
Yeah.
I think if anyone is going to kind of copy my career, you got to just put your head down and also take your luck.
Yes.
And when I say luck, I mean good luck and bad luck.
Yeah.
So learn from your bad luck, but take your good luck.
Yeah.
Don't always just think it's a privilege or it's a hard work. It's a combination of the three.
Yeah.
That and really believe in your guts as well as you shift through the companies.
Yeah.
But I'm currently now. The CLS story was a little bit interesting because at that time I actually started a family.
All right, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. They now are little horrors running around, 10 and 8 years old.
Oh God!
But
I've got similar age. I know how you feel. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
And the 10-year-old's interesting because she's starting to, not think dad's everything, where the 8-year-old thinks dad's everything. So we've got a bit of a mixed house at the moment.
I've got a 14-year-old who's really, really good but can't get off a phone.
Yeah.
A 12-year-old who's all I can call a little roadman. You know what I mean? He's got to that age where he thinks he's a gangster and all that stuff. So
I've got two girls.
Have you?
Yeah. One's a rugby player, and then the other one is does gymnastics. So they're very, very, very different.
Quite sporty. Well, at least they're sporty, so they're getting out and about.
Yeah.
God, if I could get my daughter off the couch, I'd be happy. To be fair.
Well, don't wish it too much because the two sporty ones means I sit in car parks every weekend.
Right. Okay.
Across about 6 sports, which is a privilege.
Yeah.
But it's also just be careful of
what you wish for.
Car park
park
sitting you do.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so with the new family came along and I was traveling across Europe, I needed to come back to the UK.
Not ideal. Yeah. Of course, yeah.
And I met an amazing guy, a guy called Nigel MAPP, who owns MAPP Property Management.
Yeah.
And he convinced me to come over to the managing agent side.
Yeah.
Where I'd never been a managing agent.
Right.
So it's been an experience for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But now, as you mentioned, I'm the executive director there. And that brings me up to today. And the whole way through, I've sort of grown teams, built teams, taken on existing teams. But the key thing here is that the subject has been growing around me.
Yeah.
So where say 10 years ago, we maybe dealt with one or two subjects within sustainability, mainly carbon reduction, energy efficiency.
Yeah.
Now we're dealing with everything.
Yeah.
And I don't use that word too openly. We generally are looking at every aspect of a business, from biodiversity to social value to carbon to energy to the psychology of the staff, the training. So it's quite a wide remit.
Yeah. Okay, so you've clearly sort of started right when it was really becoming a thing, when it moved away from, the EHSQ to being its own kind of thing in that sustainability bubble. What are the biggest changes you've seen during that period? And what do you think the most exciting change has been from a sustainability perspective? Because obviously it's been a difficult sell, I think, hasn't it, really? Do you know what I mean, over the years?
Yeah, there's a couple of answers there, and I'll try and keep it reasonably short in terms of replying, because it's a big question. But the biggest change would be that we've just added more to the complexity of the challenge.
Right.
So where we started with just energy efficiency back in the day, to drive down carbon, there was good people just doing good things.
Yeah.
If you look at today, we probably don't give enough time to energy efficiency because we just got so much else. We got reporting and compliance and certifications to get badges, and then we got biodiversity and social value. There's so much more to take up one person's time than there was back in the day. I could just go to a plant room, spend 4 days in a plant room to figure out how to get the pumps reduced.
Yeah.
I now have to send an email to get the pumps reduced.
Yeah.
So it's the variety that's probably the biggest change.
Right.
What's also interesting, and when I started this career, probably I would say I started sustainability in around 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
Where before that was just energy efficiency. The first 10 years, I was just trying to convince people it was real.
Yeah.
So my job was to save my job.
Yes.
So I used to just literally go from room to groups of people, to anyone who wanted to listen, saying climate change is real.
Yeah.
This is why. This is how a business can help. So I literally spent the first half of my career scaremongering and convincing. Then there came the day that, the industry and the global agenda accepted climate change is real.
Yeah.
To a degree. There's still people who, rightly so, are skeptical. Then came the momentum to action.
Yeah.
So only once we passed that threshold, I would say that threshold really beautifully aligned with the unfortunate recession we had about 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
That was where sustainability really was born to say, it's real.
Yeah.
Companies should care.
Yeah.
And now we start a journey. And so my career changed then. Then you go into action mode.
Yeah.
Like how do we
how do we do this? We've talked about proving it's there, but now we know it's there.
Yeah.
What steps do we need to take?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had to shift. So weirdly, it was a very strange, and it wasn't popular at that point, at that change. So a lot of people did a hard work to convince the business community almost globally around the world. But when that shift was succeeded, a lot of people then struggled to stop scaremongering.
Yeah.
And we still see it today. Some sustainability managers still want to, one for the better phrase, trying to scare an audience into action.
Yeah.
Where now we're past that point.
Yeah.
We're now about how can a business be better.
Yeah.
Even if it's a hoax,
it
would be great to just run a good run business through social value. I mean,
agreed.
The whole subject can be a hoax. If you get on with being good at social value, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
So we've moved on, and that shift has been quite an interesting shift.
Yeah.
And then the popularity was the third wave.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting step because it became important and popular.
Yeah.
And through popular came a lot of, there's a phrase called greenwashing, or rainbow washing or social washing. And that's where the popularity started to blur in with the importance and the action.
Yeah. So when you say rainbow washing, or whatever all of those things are that you said, what is that exactly? Are we talking about where social media started promoting it, making it more, mainstream media started promoting it, all of these avenues started promoting it at the same time, which put it into the social consciousness, and then here we are. It's a popular thing that
Yeah, it's
Is that a way to explain it, or am I wrong there?
No, you're right. You're right in one avenue. I think the reality is that people take news in different ways, and they want to be shown to others in different ways. And what I mean by that is some people get on with something, and then if you do a really good job, people look back at your job and you've done a really good job.
Yeah,
it's measurable.
Yeah,
other people will know that the job's important, so what they'll do is they'll perceive it to be done, or they will suggest it was done, and they will maybe align with something that's really good so that other people think it's done.
Yeah.
And that's where certifications come in a little bit. Certifications can be a dangerous space as well as a good space.
Well, you're kind of evidencing that you've done the things that you're supposed. Yeah. Badges.
But the badges that we talked about before the podcast, the badges culture. So, you have an extreme responsibility now, today, to just scratch the surface of that, to make sure that if someone said they've done a job or someone says they are really good at sustainability, one really important test is just to scratch below that level. Beyond what they said, what's the next layer below it, and how sustainable is that?
Yeah.
My job, I go much deeper than that.
Yeah.
But that's key, because what greenwashing comes through is what's happening is companies are saying things or people are saying things, and then you scratch the surface and there's literally nothing behind it.
So they're ticking boxes.
They're ticking boxes, or they're getting perception.
Yeah.
Now, where it gets really dangerous is through perception. They they win business.
Yes.
Now there's working groups and committees out in the world, it's particularly in the US and Europe, which actually police this and fine companies.
Are they really?
Yeah, because if you inevitably make money or make business or benefit from a perceived wrongness,
right?
Greenwash.
Yeah.
There are companies now that will come after you.
Oh, really?
They're legally strengthened by governments and working groups. So this is a real thing.
Yeah.
And that's that world. But that doesn't take away anything from the ones who are doing it.
Yeah.
So if you're saving carbon and adding to the social value, and helping nature or biodiversity, you are fine. You're absolutely fine. But you must be very careful not to go across that line, and it's really easy.
Yeah, don't overpromise and underdeliver. So in terms of the body that actually manages that, who is it? Who is the body that manages that?
So in the US, it's SEC.
Right.
I'm going to throw jargons, and then I should have written all the names. They've got long names, but SEC, and then there's EREF in Europe. So these two bodies are very powerful bodies.
Right.
SEC is actually financially backed, so they do all the checking of financials.
Right.
But then they've created a sustainability department, essentially.
Okay.
And they are policing. And there's some major. If you go and Google greenwashing claims or greenwashing cases, there are some major brands.
Are there?
I'm not going to say it on your podcast.
No, that's fair. I wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah. There's certainly some serious brands and serious fines that have come through at a global level.
Wow.
But this will only come down to smaller companies eventually.
Yeah.
But I don't want to scare
It always travels
anyone.
downhill, doesn't it? It always does. That's
exactly. But it's certainly not a space to be scared of. I think.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, it's more just to be aware of and not fall into.
Yeah.
If you're a good person, don't fall into that space.
Yeah.
Because it's only for the people who are trying to gain, really.
Yeah.
Hence,
of course,
greenwashing is quite a popular topic.
I've never looked into that before. I'm going to Google it after after today's podcast. I didn't know a great deal about it, so thank you for sharing. So Rowan, what's some of the advice right now that you're giving to your clients from a sustainability perspective, from a social perspective? What are some of the things that based on your many years within that space, are you saying this will add real value, this will help, this will, what are you suggesting? How would you deal with things?
The number one is foundation.
Right.
Get your foundation. So everything I've just explained, my career, the concepts of greenwashing or being authentic, all of that is only as strong as your foundations that you have under you. Any business that you build up, any topic that you take on, you got to go for the foundations. And in sustainability world, foundations is data.
Right. Okay.
Those two are interlinked.
Yeah.
So a really good sustainable person or really good person who's doing sustainability, even if they're a cleaner or an engineer, even a bus driver trying to get his diesel bus to electric bus, the only way you really can prove you are authentic in this whole journey, this whole challenge, is the data that you're collecting. Now, there's different versions of data. You can collect it to either help you understand the challenge, or you can collect data to show the results of your changes in that challenge.
Right.
I would argue you should be collecting both.
Yeah.
But data is foundation.
Yeah.
So many times I hear people go, "Oh yeah, we're definitely sustainable. Like we saved 100 tons," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Send me your reports." And they're like, "Reports?" Or you look at a website and you see how sustainable their paragraph might say it, but nowhere through that website do they actually give you any data.
Yeah.
So it's fundamental. It's the foundations. So my one advice is foundations.
Okay. So in terms of that data, are there any vehicles that, our listeners out there can look at that would be good vehicles for them to measure that and provide that data?
Yeah, there are. There's tons of softwares. I when I start working with someone, always say start with a spreadsheet.
Right.
It's the common denominator that everyone can broadly deal with.
Yeah.
Get a spreadsheet out. What's key to that is so we use a phrase in my industry of material.
Right.
So when you take on a challenge of climate change or take on the challenge of sustainability, first figure out what's material to you.
Yeah.
Where do you think you're going to make the biggest impact?
Yeah.
You were mentioned before the podcast about you really focus on giving back and that social value aspect, that social community. So that immediately is material to you. You might have not known that, but it's a material thing.
Right.
In that space, then go and pick 2 data sets.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's people on the podcast going, that's not enough because I'm experienced and you should get 50 data sets. That's also the answer.
Right.
But if you're starting tomorrow, go and get what's material to you, and you will know that from your gut. And you'll know that just by thinking of it for 5 seconds, something will pop up. Either nature will pop up in your head, social value will pop up in your head, carbon reduction will pop up. Something will come to your head first. Yeah. Pick that, get 2 data sets, put it on a spreadsheet, track it for at least a year, and you are already doing the journey because you will start to see something in that data that you can reduce or remove.
Yeah.
And then build it from there, right? Then you get experience and you go to me and my team. I've got a team of 25 at MAPP, and we probably track tens of thousands of lines of data.
Wow.
But that's not a place to start.
No. Something you got to build over time. Okay, so what are some of the initiatives that you're involved in or that you utilize either from a sustainability or social perspective that people can get involved in, I suppose, relatively easily? Because, there's a lot of people, because everybody's on a journey with this, aren't they? And I would say that there's not a company out there that's got it right. And after talking to you before the podcast and during it, I would say that you probably agree. What's a way for an organisation or somebody who's starting their career in facilities management, for example, to just do something easy, but something that makes a difference and has a positive impact on their career from a sustainability, social perspective?
Yeah, I always say when slightly change the question in the sense that someone comes to me and says, like, how do I get into sustainability? And then, so what do I have to look to get into sustainability? Or what do I have to do with sustainability to impress my company or my line manager or the position I'm in, maybe for promotion, whatever it may be?
That's a good idea. Yeah,
and really that comes from facility managers. They either come from either of those 2 parts. They either want to do sustainability and they say, what's the first step? Which is a really good question. And then, or they say, okay, like how can this help my career? How can I get promoted from this?
Yeah.
I think the key thing, and I'm going to be a bit of a stuck record, is the materiality is one. So make sure I use a phrase a lot in my career, have fun. So sometimes my topic can be quite daunting, complex. It's good. It's always obvious to say that sustainability managers try to make it very complex because we're experts.
Right.
So we tend to scare the facility managers away because we go very, very deep, very, very quickly. But actually pick the topic that's fun to you. And the second point is pick a topic that's important to the company. So if I just play this out a bit, you're a facility manager somewhere in the country.
Yeah.
and you are working for, let's say, an airline.
Right.
And so you're the facility manager of the airline. So what's important to you might be social value.
Yeah.
So that's what's important to you. So pick that one. That's your fun point. Like I said, go get 2 or 3 sets of data and go and play with that. If there's a social value team, even better, get involved in them.
Yeah.
Because that will be passionate to you. You will grow there.
Yeah.
The second thing is it's an airline business. So what do you think is important to them? Aviation fuel, airport usage,
airport taxes.
Yeah. So take one of their topics and say, how does that topic get sustainable? So let's keep an easy one, aviation fuel.
Yeah.
So just start to learn about aviation fuel and sustainable aviation fuel. So now you're tackling something the company needs and something you need. Then you grow from there. So it's almost an easy step when I advise people from the start, and certainly facility managers.
Yeah.
Facility managers hold the most important skill in tackling this topic.
Right.
In the sense that they know the facilities that they're managing better than anyone else. I sit on boards, as I explained to you guys, quite a few boards now. I need to get off many boards, get back in the plant room, I always say.
Yeah.
But facility manager knows their assets, whatever they're managing, better than any board.
Yeah.
So use that information, use that knowledge, and take on a fun topic and one corporate. Now, one thing I'd like to say at the end, is that corporates are probably sending every facility manager listening to this, they're sending them 9 targets, 9 areas.
Yeah.
But trust this advice by just taking one of those and really get into it, really understand it, and then pick something that's fun.
Yeah.
And you'll go from there.
Because you'll naturally change it. Would I be right in saying that if you do it in that way, it's a little bit simpler?
Yeah.
It's easier for people to understand. They can get invested in it. And over a period of time, wouldn't you naturally change how you behave? And then you can apply that behaviour to the 9 topics 12 months down the road and be more successful with them.
Yeah. And if you've got 9 targets being thrown at you and you've gone and taken 2 off that list, you've got 7 you don't like rather than 9 you don't like.
Yeah.
So psychologically, you're just in a better place.
Yeah.
And then 2 years down the line, you've got one of those down, right? You've invested your time into that, and you take another one off that list.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the challenge that you have to keep replying to all 9 targets or 9 objectives. But you've taken 2 off, and then you take 3 off, and you take 4 off. You know, I'm 22 years experience, or maybe 23. I don't know what it is now. I'm getting a bit of a dinosaur now, but I believe I only know half the subject.
Right.
So if I'm 23, 22 years of sustainability, argumentatively, I'm probably at the highest level, and I only know half.
Yeah.
You can imagine the challenge of a facility manager taking on sustainability. So,
especially with everything else they have, because I was going to kind of touch on that. You know, from a time perspective, you know, it's very difficult for them to manage on top of everything else they have to do.
Huge. You know? It's one of the biggest mistakes sustainability professionals make is facility managers are under attack. I mean, they got health and safety coming through their nose.
Exactly.
They got much more duties around finance. They have to have so much more eyes on the ground in terms of the amount of companies they manage these days. And so let's have an argument from previous days, and then you throw sustainability on top.
Yeah.
You know, so
tough.
I envy the facility manager, but I also don't let the facility manager sort of lean on those excuses, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They also have a very important duty.
Yeah.
Now, I also agree with facility managers going, do you know what? Sustainability is not my thing. Because remember, I talked about it being fun and passionate.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe nothing comes to your mind about that.
Yeah.
Maybe you love health and safety.
Yeah.
Be honest. Go and do health and safety. Go do that really well.
Does anybody look health? Do they? Are there people out there?
Yes. People still taping 2 ladders together?
Yeah. What's going on? Oh, right.
But, you know, just be honest in the subject. You always hear someone like myself always talk about being authentic. So sometimes sustainability is not your thing. Then be honest. Don't do it. Don't frustrate yourself there. Go be really good at health and safety.
Yeah.
Tell the rest of the team to do sustainability.
Yeah. Get people that have an interest in it to deliver it. Okay. So how do you think technology, specifically AI, is going to, because this is clearly it's only going to be able to help and drive things forward. What's your view on that?
Positive.
Yeah. How do you see it interacting with the sustainable world? And
Yeah. So let's pretend that your foundations are right.
Yes, yeah, we've got the foundations
you can't do
right.
AI without foundations.
Yeah, we've got the data.
We got the data, and it's never perfect, but it's good, it's solid. Then AI can be a real help.
Right.
I think you need to double end. I sort of refer to this as on another podcast. You got to double end the AI, and what I mean by that is watch what's going in. The AI does its magic.
Yeah.
And watch what's going out.
Yeah.
And study those two sets very, very carefully.
Yeah.
Because I think what I've seen recently, and I certainly play with a few AIs, is we kind of like play with what's going in.
Yeah.
And then we kind of believe what's come out.
Yeah,
as the truth, right?
But it's not.
We need to analyze those two spaces.
Yeah, because all it's done is taken the information you've given it and created what it determines it to be correct.
And so AI for me right now, today, can hugely reduce the analytical side. So it could process data. I don't think it can decision-make data.
Right.
I think that's a dangerous space.
Okay.
I think decision-making for now depends where AI... I mean, AI is scary when you really start to look in its capabilities. But decision-making, we kind of hold off on that.
Right.
But we're looking at AI seriously for analytical purposes. Can it shorten a task?
Yeah.
But not for decision making, not for looking at the results of the output.
Yeah.
That still stays with us.
So you're thinking in terms of, potentially, developing and writing policies and things like that. Could it be useful for that?
I think it could do, in that kind of scenario, I think AI is good enough to do you a version 1 and that is not usable.
Yes, of course.
All.
Yeah.
That's where I think it could shorten the task to version 1.
Yeah, and then you can
proofread, and I think that's still human.
Oh yeah, it has to be. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, because there's not going to be things in there that are relevant to what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. Now, the argument is AI will be able to do the published policy. By pressing a button. But for me today, I think it give you a good start at version 1 that's internally drafted. And shorten that timeline. So the average worker, if you said to them 5 years ago, if you went to an average worker and said, write a policy, they'd sweat, right?
Yeah, they would,
blank piece of paper and go and write a 9-page policy or 50-page policy.
Never mind them. I would, Rowan. I'd be like, oh, no. Not compliance.
I mean, I'm quite heavily dyslexic, so any policy writing is a daunting task for me. But so I think that individual now, today, asks, can you go and write a cleaning policy, an M&E policy, a sustainability policy? I think they could quite easily use AI to get them a draft. But that's its limit for me. And we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? I think we're probably not far away from things like AI making suggestions around.
Be nice if the AA turned.
We would do, making actual sustainability initiative suggestions. Suggestions for how a business could install a certain piece of equipment. How, what type of technology would be useful for a building of a certain shape, and because all of that data is going to get fed into it over a period of time, and it'll use that data, won't it, to come up with new ways of doing things.
So, I've been playing with AI.
Which one's your favourite one out of interest? There's a few, isn't
there? I don't think it's safe to say which one's my favourite one because I'm just not convinced yet of any. I have ones that I think are really, coming through quite nicely. The famous one being the GBT. GBT4. But what I think AI has really got spot on straight away is a stepped process. So on the plane that I've ever done on AI, I think if you said, how do I put a picnic together? It will give you 5 steps on how to do a picnic.
Right.
But it won't actually tell you how to do the barbecue.
Oh, right, okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? It won't tell you how to cook good meat. Or entertain your guests.
No.
At that picnic. So I think it's really good at that really simple stage.
Sort of just low level instructional stuff.
How can you go about doing a sustainability strategy, and it'll give you 8 steps within 4 seconds. Now that takes a lot of pressure off a sustainability manager repeating that over and over and over.
Yeah, it does.
But it doesn't tell you how to implement or what's the challenges of executing those 8 steps in a sustainability strategy.
Have you ever asked it that question?
I have.
What happened?
And it just gave me the same 8 steps in a different way.
Right. Okay.
So
isn't it like the mind of an 8-year-old or something like that? Isn't that what they say it is?
I believe it's what you pay. So I believe the free versions are like the mind of an 8-year-old, but if you pay up in those platforms, then you apparently get like, an older version of them.
Oh, right.
More mature version.
12-year-old or something
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. I had no idea.
Maybe it peaks at 18, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's when we're at our peak learning, aren't we?
Yeah.
Around
but
18.
I think if someone ever comes to you with a new phrase or a new jargon, or can you put together 5 steps on something, AI today is brilliant.
Yeah.
But if they said, can you go and do that 5 steps, AI is dangerous. It just will Google the same stuff again.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. Thank you, Rowan. So moving on to the social aspect now, because I find the social aspect really interesting. As you could probably tell, I'm probably more interested in that than the sustainable. Not that I'm not interested in sustainability, of course I am, but that's more interesting to me. I think businesses struggle with this one. Because I don't think they necessarily know how to do it properly, or they try to do it, with the best of intentions and things like that. But me personally, I think we need to be helping within the cultures where we operate, which is actually quite a difficult thing to do. It's not as easy as it sounds, because reaching out to institutions that you can help and so on and so forth can be quite a difficult thing to do. What's your view on that? And what would you do, and how would you do it from a social perspective?
Social's definitely an interesting one. So I think let me start with the one point you made about it's really hard to measure.
Yeah.
So social value, social impact, social community work is definitely the hardest thing to measure. In the sustainability world, carbon is well measured now these days.
Yes.
Energy is well measured.
Yeah.
Waste management's getting on. Water's always the ugly child, but it's getting on with data management. Shout out there to all the water companies.
Yeah.
But social value is the hardest.
Yeah.
And equally biodiversity. So biodiversity and social value are the hardest data sets right now.
Okay.
And people then get disillusioned by the fact that it's really hard to measure. So if you can't measure it, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's one of the key hurdles that you try to eliminate. So with carbon, I'm always like, measure it. And do it, and you need both at high quality.
Yeah, of course.
Social, I'm like, don't get tied up on the measure, and you're missing the opportunity to help, to invest, to change someone's life. So that's the first point.
Yeah.
Like, we all chasing the measure, and we should continue chasing the measure. But actually, when I flip to social value, when I start thinking about social value, I'm just like, be a good person.
Yeah.
That be a good person needs to come through. And if I'm in a company of 650 people, so I'm thinking, how do I get 650 people
to be good people? Yeah.
Not how do I measure 600 people? Right. I'll get there.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a blocker for me.
Yeah.
But the second thing is for social value is actually impact. Like just get on with getting into. We talk about 3 levels. So there's social impact around you, immediately around you. Now that could be around your business, around your family.
The people you impact on a day-to-day
basis.
Right.
Then there's the second level, and I'm in the real estate industry, but that would be the community that's around that immediate ring that you've decided is your ring.
Right.
That community that supports that ring. So if, let's say it's your family, then it's the town and the school that is a big impact on your family.
Yeah.
So what are you doing for that community? That's your second ring.
Yeah.
And then your third ring is possibly the city.
Yeah.
The city that then is governing the schools, and the schools are governing your kids, and the kids are keeping your husband or wife happy.
Yeah.
So it's when you look at social value, I always try to do just 3 rings. You can keep going with the rings. You can go to UK, then you can go to global levels. Some people do that. I just say control your 3 rings.
Right.
So you're in your closest impact that you feel is your closest impact, then your community, then probably at city or village level.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Now for businesses, same thing. So if you're a national business, you probably will. Your third ring will probably be the UK
national ring. Yeah.
If you're a local business, you're in your local business in Manchester, then your third ring will be Manchester.
Yeah.
Your second ring will be your business, and your inner ring will be your staff.
Yeah.
And social value takes all forms. Like you got mental health all the way through to helping communities.
Yeah.
To where you feel you can, again, I'm going to repeat myself, the materiality, but where is a material to you?
Where you feel you can actually add value.
Exactly.
Because to me, it's you're implementing your skill set, and we all have different skill sets. We're all good at different things. So what is it? Identifying what you're good at as a business, I suppose, and then working with that, and trying to.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to find what good people are good at. So I find I've worked in many companies now, and from Sainsbury's having I think it was 150,000 people to where I'm now with MAPP with 650 people.
Yeah.
And I had to do social value in both spaces.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just seeing what the people's interests are, where they want to make an impact.
Yeah.
But also what can the business do as an impact and marry the two together.
Yeah.
And then you can get the right energy to tackle impact as opposed to social value. And those are two different constructs.
Yeah.
You can do social value, which is almost what the company says it does, but impact is when the person's life actually changes because you spent time with them.
Okay.
Both are very hard to measure, by the way, just to reiterate that.
Yeah.
But so many times I actually go into a business and we've covered this a little bit here, but I actually don't really care what we think is important. I start looking at the 650 people and what they're investing in.
Yeah.
And the energy is clear. So, for instance, in my organization, there's a real sense of community. So that second ring I talked about.
Yeah.
So we have assets that we manage.
Yeah.
We're really good with our occupiers, but we seem to be also very, very good at that second layer.
Right.
Looking after that wider space around the managed assets.
Yeah.
Our people are natural at it. They're not instructed. So all we're doing is now trying to measure that. So now we can spend time measuring it.
Yeah.
And then all we're trying to do is educate or improve the knowledge of those individuals to then go for that third ring, which in, a simple example would be we've got a building in Manchester. We look after the local community and the building.
Yeah.
And we try to do as much as we can, but then we're trying to now push out to a Manchester-wide support.
Yeah, so your culture within the business is kind of bleeding outside the ring now. And it's offering additional help elsewhere.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to explain it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And sometimes it's global. Sometimes people want to shoot over to Africa and build a well or help, there's a lot of children in need around the world.
Yes.
One for an argument, let's just say the UK children are, there's struggling children in this country. We definitely have a problem with homelessness here. But, around the world, the kids are in a probably more dire position. So some people want to go and do that.
Yeah.
And it's just using that energy, promoting that energy, educating them, supporting them to be that advocate.
Yeah.
But I think the three rings, it's almost like look after your own shop before you start to go to other shops.
I really like that analogy. I think it's a very simple way to look at it, and probably quite effective. I would assume. To be fair,
I probably find everything I say is pretty simple.
No,
Give all the secrets away.
It's all been very interesting so far, Rowan. To be fair, don't worry, we've got a notepad, mate. Don't worry about it. We're nicking it all. Yeah. No, I'm joking. So obviously, let's talk about the ESG, the governance. What's your views on the governance? Because nobody really talks about that. Let's be honest, do we? Nobody. Everybody talks about the E, the S, but the G.
Yeah, the G is just the police.
Yeah.
G is just there to protect the E and the S. To say if you say anything about the E, you say anything about the S. If you do anything about the E or the S, and let's call it the B as well, biodiversity.
Yeah.
Should be ESGB.
Yeah.
Or ESGN nature.
So ESBG.
Yeah, it's getting too long.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
But we always forget nature, don't we? Poor nature.
We are pretty bad.
But I think governance is just the form, it's the document, it's the policing, it's where you put everything down to say, we're legit. We complying with it because we're either monitoring data or we're doing a submission to a standard, or my company's triggered something and therefore it has to do governance work. So I think it's an incredibly important piece.
Yeah.
But it's also piece, governance really kicks in once you start getting mature on the topic.
Yeah.
I think when you're a startup, when you're an innovator, when you're relatively small business and you just under all the thresholds of triggers, governance can just be left alone, really.
Yeah.
But when you start to mature on the topic and you're starting to make big claims, governance really pays off.
Becomes important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And governments use that as a trigger, right?
Yeah,
to leave it to them in the other direction. Yeah.
Okay. So if we go back to biodiversity, are we talking about re-engineering our cities here, Rowan? Because listen, this I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to mention it, but you did say bring the bee in, so let's talk about the bee.
100%.
Go on.
So biodiversity is an interesting one. Like fundamentally, we are as humans, we are taking away nature.
Yeah.
For space for us.
Yeah.
So we are adding more occupied space for us and less occupied space for the world of nature.
Yeah.
David Attenborough has echoed that for way longer than anyone in this country. So, that's the challenge. That's the challenge. Is biodiversity shrinking and we're growing. So the question is, there's two questions really that come to my mind is, what are we doing about that issue alone? How responsible are we taking away nature's space? So what are we leaving nature with as we take that away? And what does that look like? And we have a responsibility there. One for our kids, so they can see the same animals and insects we've seen, because we saw them. We said, great, but can we have your space?
Yeah.
Oh, and you got no habitat now, so almost goodbye.
Yeah. But then do we think about this slightly differently? Okay, and start re-engineering how we build things, re-engineering how we put buildings up, so that we don't whilst we are occupying the space, we're still leaving a space for them.
Exactly. Now
that's the way to do it, isn't it?
So the first question is like, okay, what are we going to do for nature as we take it?
Yeah.
The second question is, we've taken it.
Yeah.
So how do we get nature back in?
Yeah.
Can nature co-live with us?
Yeah.
And you might have heard of a phrase in the industry coming out called biodiversity net gain.
Yeah.
It's a concept that I personally fully support, but it's where humans are coming in. We're building a building. We're building a city. We're doing something that's taking habitat away.
Yeah.
And so this whole contract this whole concept, saying contract, but this whole concept is essentially to say, how do you bring nature back into all of this takeover?
Yeah.
So how do you bring in biodiversity in terms of animals and insects in particular is a very popular area because cities really do a lot of damage in that sense. But also just the actual wild trees goes quite deep. So soil retention, peatlands, all this, nature and biodiversity is quite a wide subject.
Yeah.
Also comes indoors. That's fair to say. A thing called biophilia. We got plants in this room with us today, and that's a connection with us and nature. So that's a biophilia connection.
Yeah.
So the challenge of biodiversity is in twofold. As we take the habitat away, what responsibility do we have there? And you see that play out in the wild animals.
Yeah.
So as we're shrinking the elephant land or we're shrinking the tiger's land in Asia, what is our responsibility to that tiger? Imagine someone coming to your house and shrinking your house incrementally, slowly. They're starting to take away your bathrooms, your bedrooms. You can imagine that feel as a human, right? But then you would kind of go to that person. You can't stop it, but you kind of go to that person saying, can you help? You're shrinking my house.
Yeah.
But I need your help now because you've got all that space on the other side that you've taken, and I'm shrinking. Then the second part is, can we co-live? So before you shrink me to nothing, can we co-live, please? Can I come that side every Wednesday?
Yeah.
And can I live with you? Because you're clearly taking my space. That's the biodiversity challenge.
Yeah.
It's that fold of both. Like, we're taking land, so where's that? And then how can we co-live?
Yeah. Okay. So another one, right? So the ULEZ has been quite controversial, as I'm sure you know. Not that I want to get political.
You're going straight in there.
But I just think it's quite an interesting. I read an article, and I'm neither here nor there because I've got a Mondeo, so I'm just not going to drive my car in London. It's as simple as that. But the issue surrounding the ULEZ is carbon and pollution, and people having asthma attacks and things like that. To me, a solution to that would be to plant more trees, because trees eat carbon. So rather than charging the populace $12.95 per day driving to London, why didn't we invest in a replanting strategy of trees around the city, across every sidewalk, and things, not sidewalk, paths. Let's stick to paths. I'm not going to be
sidewalk, gone American.
I know.
It's American audience.
Yeah, I know. Path, people, path. Why didn't we do something like that? And would something like that have worked? I mean, I don't know, but would something like that have worked, in your opinion?
To answer your first question, what's my view on ULEZ or any taxing of my subject by any government around the world? I actually don't care. I think it's not an influence on me. It doesn't change my agenda. So I think governments will tax, and in some places should tax, but in majority of places we'll see the benefit to tax.
Yeah, I get that. It's not really the tax.
That's but that's the first point.
Yeah,
I think so. The £12.50, I think, and I don't want to be controversial.
Excuse me.
But the £12.50 is definitely maybe a bit of opportunist in there. I think it's also got a bit of responsibility, which is the main message, that it's for pollution. I think that's legit. I think there are definitely people suffering from pollution.
I don't disagree with that at all, yeah.
But then for me, the ultimate answer of all of these scenarios, and I've been lucky enough to work pretty much quite a few countries in the world. I just want to see that money reinvested into what you just said, which is to plant the tree programs. I don't think anyone can do it beforehand.
Yeah.
Because it's chicken and egg. Yeah. In any business, you need investment before kind of chicken and egg. Who do you get the money first, or do you go and lend the money? So if a government's high lending, which this government is per se, then it kind of makes sense for them to try and make revenue to invest. So for me, I just want to see more trees as a result, right?
But that's the reality. That's if they want to clean the air, the way you clean the air is you plant more trees.
Yes.
It is as simple as that. There is no two ways about it.
And you want to see a progressive scheme where it starts at 12 and you promise the community with a really aggressive tree planting program that it will start at 12 and end at £4.
Yeah.
And commit to that.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's missing. It's saying to the audience, right, we're going to charge you 12 or £13, but we commit to drop it £1 every 2 years.
Yeah.
But we will plant,
exactly
planting 10,000 trees a year in London.
If you were to say to people, we're doing this so that we can achieve X.
Yes.
Yeah, so that we can actually clean the air up by natural means, make it the city better, make everything better, but it's going to take 5 years to do X, Y, Z. So this is why we're doing it. But, once it's in place, it's in place.
Yeah. And there's a lot more measures, rather. We're leaving out the cyclist community benefits. Yeah. We the arguments around train efficiencies, bus efficiencies. There's a lot of topic around here on how they can mitigate. But it's just turning that money and putting it in the right place. In the renewable energy world, you also have a tax that you pay on your bills. Yeah. You pay it every single week, CCL tax, and that's essentially the same thing. Yeah. So weirdly, your utility bills have had the same charge for many, many years, and the UK has had the fastest growing renewable mix. We've had a decarbonisation of our grid faster than majority of countries in the world, because that money is getting its way back. Now, some of that money goes in other directions, but we're seeing more renewables. Yeah. So that's your theory, is that if we're paying this London fee, let's start to see trees. Let's start to see cycle lanes or better buses.
Yeah, better ways to do it. I mean, I think if you plant shrubs, trees, things like that, you fix a couple of problems, because you create a place for insects, you create a place for birds, you bring in a bit of wildlife back into the city as well, which is what we want to do, isn't it?
You drop the temperature of the city.
Temperature of the city in summer because of a series of factors. So I'm quite analytical. I'm like, there's such a simple answer. Just sort it. I don't get it sometimes, and sometimes we don't get there.
Maybe going back to that foundations being authentic, maybe we should go and look at the ULEZ original zone. Yeah. Wherever that was. Actually, that's a really good point. Maybe off this podcast, I go and
see if there's any trees. See if what trees have been planted.
See what those streets. Because what's the original ULEZ?
The original was Zone 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, but how old is that now? That must be fairly old.
It's about 2-3 years old, I think.
So
isn't it?
let's go back on those streets and have a look. If there's no more trees or no more better bus system, or then we kind of know our answer, right?
That's true.
Then we go back to that greenwashing argument.
We do. Yeah, and we've all been lied to.
Yeah, hopefully the mayor's not listening to this podcast. Let's hope he is, actually, get your subscription
to be fair, he should be, shouldn't he? You know, we might teach him something, Rowan, which is important.
He's quickly going to plant some trees on those streets.
He's away now. He's down there right now. Okay, Rowan, listen, that kind of brings us to the end of the podcast. How did you find it?
Yeah, really good. Really nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
I think this podcast is awesome. And, before we started the podcast, you said you were doing this because you're trying to use this to really express and share knowledge so that people under that social value can grow and help. And hopefully everyone listening here will turn any of these listeners or speakers you talk to and turn to people and help them.
That's what we're hoping for.
And that's amazing.
We have examples of that. People who have been on the show already, people have reached out to them on LinkedIn, asked them for career advice, asked them for advice on certain subjects and things like that. So it is proving to be a bit of a vehicle, which is what we wanted. So we're very proud of it, and thank you for your kind words.
Yeah, and you're on the journey. So brilliant.
We are, without a doubt. Okay, thank you very much, Rowan. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
All right, Wear Many Hats visitors. Another really interesting episode there. Obviously, we took on the man, and gave him some advice with regards to trees. And as ever, if you can't be good, be bad. See you later. Bye-bye.